My senior year, the start of my senior year in college, I remember I was in my driveway and I was praying. I was like, Lord, what does it mean to be a Christian athlete? And I had just given my life to Christ at the end of my junior year. The first game that I'd ever played as a Christian was in the Frozen Four. We were in Washington, D.C., playing in the Frozen Four in the national championship game. Just a dream of an experience. And then my senior year, we come into the year, and so I was excited for the year, and I was a new Christian. And I was like, Lord, what does it mean to be a Christian athlete? And I'll never forget just feeling like the Lord just smiled at me, like He was gonna teach me. And little do I know, as the year begins, I go as the senior, 8 games into the season, I'm out of the lineup, and I'm completely scratched, and I'm healthy, but I'm not playing. And hockey is ripped from me again, in a sense, right? And so, as I began to live that year, that whole season, I played 15 total games out of 40-some. I didn't score a single goal all season long. Hockey was incredibly difficult. But as hockey got more and more difficult, one of the best decisions I ever made that year is I didn't put a TV in my room. And I just opened my Bible and I dove in with all the pain and emotions and frustrations and struggles. I had some friends that took me under their wing, and I was engaging in Athletes in Action ministry on campus, and I began to grow in my faith. So hockey was going down, my faith was kind of growing and going up, and it was just this incredible year. Well, as that year continued on, and I wrestled through so much with that, there was a point where I got so low on the depth chart that the team went to a away game, but I became the backup to the backups. So the players went, the backup scratches went, but I was like the backup to the backup, so they kept me home. And for a senior who had had hopes on pro hockey, who had aspirations and people that thought I should be making pro hockey, to a guy who was a scholarship athlete, to be in this place where I was the backup to the backups, man, it was humbling. But for me, it was a big step because I'll never forget saying to myself, there's got to be a reason God wants me here. And I'll know by the end of the weekend, there's got to be a reason. And I just threw myself in faith on that. Sure enough, there was a guy coming through who was preaching and sharing. He's a traveling evangelist. And he was sharing about one thing you can't do in heaven, and that's share the gospel with an unbeliever. Because everybody in heaven knows Jesus. And so, man, it just cut me to the heart. And I was like, I have to share Jesus. And I didn't know how, but I just tried. I just started learning. So I would start talking to people about God. I started asking questions, I would sit with people at dining room tables, and I would talk to people I'd meet randomly on the streets, and I just try to strike up conversations about God. And I talked with some of my teammates, and I would ask them at times, I'm like, you guys ever thought about what happens when you die? And if they would talk with me, we'd have a great conversation, and I would try to share. But if they didn't and they shut it down, then I wouldn't force it. But I was always trying to spark those conversations, and I was learning. And so, anyways, as that kind of went on, there was a day when the team was going out to the bar, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to join them, I'm going to serve them, I'm just going to spend quality time with my teammates, no judgment, spend some time with them. And it was at that bar that there was a guy that was there whose name was Brennan, and part of our team manager, fantastic guy, loved him, super friendly, not a Christian. And anyways, I struck up a conversation with him, and I was like, Brennan, you ever thought about what happens when you die? And we talked for a bit, and he was like, yeah, man, there's nothing out there. I know there's nothing out there. And I was like, why is that? And anyways, he shuts down the conversation shortly, and it was shortly after that conversation that I had this peace to just go home. It was like that was almost like what I was there to do, was to talk with Brennan. And so I go home, and then 2 days later, that was a Saturday. 2 days later, I get called into my coach's office, and my coach absolutely loses it on me. He starts saying, you don't know what happens when you die. You can't be talking to people about this stuff. You have no idea. And he just lit into me. And he said, you're causing division on my team. If you keep talking to people about Jesus, I'm going to kick you off my team, and I need you to tell me right now this is not going to happen anymore. And I didn't know what to say. I was in that room because I'm sitting there, the verses are going through my head is that we obey God, not man. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, if I tell my coach, no, coach, I won't share Jesus anymore, what am I going to say to Jesus one day? Right? Like, yeah, I couldn't do it there. But if I say, no, coach, I'm going to keep talking about Jesus, he can kick me off the team. And I'm like, there goes maybe my scholarship, there goes a lot of stuff. And so for me, I'm sitting in that place. I'll never forget having this incredible peace come over me, like the God of all comfort. You know how it says in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, it says that our God is the God of all comfort. He comforts us in our affliction. I was so comforted, I almost wanted to smile in this conversation. And man, if I would have smiled, that would have been terrible. And that would have been real bad. But anyways, we talked. I tried to tell my coach, I'm like, Coach, yeah, I do know what happens when we die. And I tried to tell him about Jesus, but it was a battle. It was hard. That was really hard. And I still don't know if that had to do something with Brennan's, the conversation on Saturday. I've never asked. But that was Monday. Coach kicks me out of his office. Doesn't kick me off the team, kicks me out of his office, and it says to me that I know how to make you understand. And that was the last thing I kind of heard in that conversation. I left the office, and it was like this walk back of just like everybody's quiet in the room. Everybody knows I was getting just torn into. And but I went from a moment, for me in that moment, I went from a place of needing hockey to wanting hockey in my life, because I in that moment said, Lord, I choose you. You can have the Frozen Fours. You can have the national championships. You can have the scholarship. Like, you can have all of this. I choose you, and I will serve you. That was Monday. That was a huge day for me. And I just put my gear on, and I went to practice, and I just kept showing up, and I kept serving Jesus and trying to. And just, man, it felt uncomfortable. But Tuesday and Wednesday come around, and I get some guys that start pulling me aside, saying, "Hey, we heard that you're out condemning people. You're condemning Brennan, for his lifestyle." And because Brennan just was not a Christian, and he was that I was condemning him for what he was doing. And I was like, guys, I never condemned him. Jesus never condemned me. I didn't condemn him, and so that was hard though, because I feel like this rumor's getting spread, and I didn't know, it was just hard, but I knew that if I fought that battle on my own, it was just going to dig me a bigger hole, and so I just kept showing up to love on people. Well, that was kind of through the week, and then Friday comes, we're playing at home. I don't remember if we were playing Michigan State or who we were playing, but Coach comes in, we win the game. I wasn't playing. I was sitting in my stall. Coach walks in the room, and he goes, guys, I got some terrible news. He goes, Brennan died in a car accident tonight. He was driving home. He slid off the road, and he died. And for me, in that moment, it was a really, that was a moment for me, because I was sitting in my stall. Here I am. I feel like my guys think I condemned him who just died. I'm wrestling with the fact that he told me he thinks there's nothing out there. It was just a heavy moment, and I'm like, do I really believe what I believe? Because if I really, really genuinely believe what I believe, he might not be in a good place right now. And it was just this moment for me of what do I believe, and what do I do? Do I try to save face with my teammates? How do I handle this? And I had this internal wrestle, but I stood up and I was like, Lord, just because it's tough doesn't mean it's not true. I beg you and I pray he came to know you in his last week of his life. And I walk forward, and I genuinely still to this day, that's my hope. My hope is that he came to Christ in that last week. And just because it's tough to accept, it doesn't mean it's not true. And God is gracious, and Lord willing, he grabbed his life. Well, I had some guys on my team that were so mad at me, they literally would not talk to me. I would say hi to them, they wouldn't respond. And that was difficult. That was really difficult for me. My relationship was largely strained with a lot of people within that team, and I still to this day have never had the chance to talk with him about everything. I think I was maybe my heart to want to share Christ. I do it differently now. I think I was maybe a little bit overzealous, but I don't think that God faults me for my heart to want to share Jesus. But as that continued on, we went to the funeral. the family called my coaches and asked if I would stay away from the family because they thought I condemned their son who passed. And man, it was just it was like I was in the flames, I was in the fire, you know. But looking back on that year shaped me so much. I never thought I'd play pro hockey. I never thought I'd get a chance to play. I didn't score a single goal my whole senior season. I nearly get kicked off my team for sharing Christ. I thought I was done. I thought I was going to go and be a pastor or do something. And in ministry, but God opened up a door. And they never asked a question. The first team I went to never asked a question about my senior year. I get a chance to go play pro hockey, and I went in as a missionary who happened to play hockey, not as a man defined by hockey. So God taught me what it meant to be a Christian athlete. I was not an athlete who happened to be a Christian. I was a Christian who happened to play hockey and to be an athlete. And it radically changed my life. But man, that's my hope. My hope is for him that he came to Christ in that last week.